really delighted to welcome every one of you to tonight's coffee talk session. Hope all of you watching have a coffee next to you while enjoying this session. Also, don't forget to like and share this live session, and you may stand a chance to walk off with our NALS merchandise as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, for your information, National Aspiration and Leadership Society NALS is a high-capacity summit catered for Malaysians from all over the globe. NALS is an inspiring event that provides a platform for participants to engage in dialogue session with prominent leaders, public figures, and youth leaders across Malaysia, with a common goal, which is for the betterment of our country, Malaysia.
Exactly. And we are esteemed to have all of you here at our second coffee talk session under Bunga campaign, a youth initiative to celebrate women's empowerment in conjunction with the International Women's Day.
Truly. So, as everyone already knows, we had a remarkable guest speaker for tonight's NALS Coffee Talk session. For that, I introduce to all of you YB Maria Chin Abdullah, Member of Parliament for Petaling Jaya and a human rights activist in Malaysia. Glad to have you with us tonight, YB.
Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera. Thank you very much to Nels and to both of you being the moderators. Thank you for the invite.
Yes, and on behalf of the organizing committee, we would like to express our heartfelt gratitude for you for making the time to attend this session.
Thank you.
All right, YB. To begin our session tonight, YB, maybe you could share with us on how you ventured into politics and what is your desire that keeps you moving forward every day?
I think that politics is depending on how you define it. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure we are not just talking about political party politics here.
Yeah.
I think that I'm interested in it when I went to realized that politics is bigger than just political party. When I was a student in UK and being involved in a student movement, and from there I have always been with the NGO. Then of course moved into more human rights, which is BERSE, the free and fair election. What made me go into party politics was a discussion that we had at BERSE, whereby a few of us felt that we have tried everything. We all have tried everything at BERSE, and we wanted to push the boundary. So we thought that if we could get independent candidates to stand in the election, and some of us get into the parliament, perhaps then there is that opportunity for us to actually push for the policies and also the laws that we have always been talking about at BERSE level, at the women's movement, and also at the human rights movement. So when I thought about it, and I felt that this was something new, challenging, and I wanted to try. I wanted to try to see if I could actually contribute more than what I'm doing in BERSE. So that's why I'm here as the member of parliament. Yeah.
All right, such a great story behind your portfolio as a chairman for BERSE 2 at first, and you go for involvement in political party, if I'm not mistaken, in 2018, YB?
Yes.
All right, so I think that's the first time you entered political involvement, and you won Petaling Jaya constituency with 78,984 votes for the first time you entered general election. So such a great spirit that I can saw from your movement, starting from BERSE till you go for the political involvement.
Yes.
So Alice, I look that you have some question that you can ask, or you
Yes,
want
exactly.
to ask YB about
Yes, exactly.
about her
So,
movement.
YB, you mentioned earlier about independent candidates, right? It's interesting to me that, and I would like to know more that, do you believe that not only independent candidates, or rather more specifically, women in political leadership provides a different kind of voice, and what kind of different voice that women actually bring to the table?
just to clarify, when we did one independent candidates, but at that time, 2018, the mood was to actually either you contest under Pakatan Harapan, but we used the flag of PKR. So eventually, of course, I joined PKR. So from independent, I became a party member. Definitely more women candidates, but I feel that we don't have enough opportunity. We meaning the women. Sorry about that, Irfan. I feel that there has to be um, a much more systemic change in law, as well as the perception within political parties, yeah, that they have to start thinking that they have to make um, to give the opportunity and also access for women to be able to contest, to be considered as calon. Of course, it's really up to the voters whether they want to vote you. No political party can guarantee that you will win. Yeah, but at least you reach the calon level, I mean the candidate level. And there are many, unfortunately, within the political parties, there are gatekeepers who actually decide, yeah, who gets to stand in where, and including the gender. So that has to actually change. But I feel that when we actually talk about political participation of women, we 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 don't mean, for me, I don't mean that any women can be a politician. Yeah, it has to be also, I mean, even voters expect you to be of a certain quality. It's not like somebody who don't know anything, or are corrupt, or that you don't believe in the rule of law. You don't be For me, I think that believing in gender equality and non-discrimination is important. So these are some of the qualities that we also look for in any candidate, whether it's men or women. But for women, I think that what is important is that I would want to see more temporary measures like quota for women to be brought into, because for nearly 3 decades, yeah, we have been struggling with 20 women, 21 women, 19 women parliamentarians, and only this 2018 that we actually touched 14.4%. For me, that's still not good enough, because if you look at the neighboring countries, they are well over 20% at least. That is their minimum. And we are supposed to be a country that is doing very well, yeah, in terms of economically and even socially. And yet we can't have so many women, minimum of 30% women in parliament. And this time round, with this takeover of the new government, we haven't actually advanced, because we only have about 9 women in cabinet, including deputy ministers. And in total, we only have 33 women parliamentarians. Yeah. Um, and if you want more policies that will actually help to promote women issues, yeah, child care, sexual harassment, and about rape, about women in who are facing uh, detention without trial and so forth, you do need a critical mass, yeah, from the women to raise this kind of issues. Of course, the men can raise, but not many of them have been raising. So it still depend on women parliamentarians to actually raise all these issues and to really fight for policies and laws, so that we give um, the much needed protection for women. So I think that increasing women at least 30%, if not 50%. In Rwanda is 60. They are coming up to 60 or 70%. So this is something that we have to really work towards.
That's very interesting that you mentioned about policy making and the gatekeeper. Even though women are trying to get into that, there's still barriers and barricades they need to come across. And that leads to another question that is related to that, is that are the current policies rather enough, like you mentioned, to enshrine and protect the rights of women um, in general?
Policies, yeah, to some extent. If you look at the 11th Malaysia Plan, 10th and 11th Malaysia Plan, of course, it mentioned about international standards, which is the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW. It does mention that we should actually move towards some of the principles within CEDAW. It also mentioned about gender mainstreaming. The policy also mentioned that we are now into the Sustainable Development Goal, and Goal 5 is actually about gender equality. But that is just policy. It's not even sad to say, it's not fully implemented. Yeah, we still have laws like laws related to rape, where it doesn't recognize gang rape. It doesn't recognize like when rape happens to um, uh, people, women who are challenged, they have been raped. It doesn't happen. So there are quite a lot of things. It doesn't. It doesn't give that kind of protection for women. So laws is important to set the tone, because then it actually tell people that if you do this, if you rape or you sexually harass another man or woman, it is a crime. So if you set that standard, then people will not do it. So and then when you implement it, um, there's also some challenges, particularly in domestic violence. We still have, like, frontliners telling, please go home. It's only a domestic affair. He just slapped you only. There's no blood flowing out of you. Um, so that's a problem, because then the frontliners are not understanding that women who get slapped, because domestic violence is not just about physical abuse, but it's also mental. And people don't, you can't see mental torture. You can see physical torture, but you can't see mental torture. And that kind of perception needs to be corrected also. So it's important, to really have not just policies, but make sure that the policy laws are implemented, um, and principles being understood. I think that's important. That's why we tend to fail quite badly too. So I give you an example. Say for example, there's always this myth that women dress sexily, so therefore if rape happens, you deserve it. So the usual response, yeah, is that, oh, you better cover up yourself. You better not go out at night. And that actually shows that you just want to protect the women. Nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't help the situation, because the situation, if you're talking about substantive equality, then you will have to educate young boys and young girls right from the start to respect each other. Then you start changing perception. Then you also have to teach people that, whether I wear um, fully dressed or not fully dressed, I don't deserve to be raped, because rape is a crime. So that kind of education has to happen. And so therefore, when I talk about gender mainstreaming, it has to actually enter into the institutions, police and social welfare and all that, for them to understand, that regardless of whether how I dress, how I go out or not, when if I do get raped, it is a crime. and it has to be treated as a crime and not treated as just a police report. So the changing laws and policies is necessary, but implementing means changing perception, and that is also important.
Great, YB. I do agree with you that you keep mentioning that we need to educate, we need to changing the perception, especially on our youth mentality and also perception. So I do agree that we need to find a ways on how we need to educate those people on behalf to protect the woman itself. So my next question to you, YB, regarding the things that you keep mentioned about education and also changing. So what kind of things that the governments or women in political movement and involvement can help to educate and changing those perceptions, especially in on youth, on youth.
Particularly for the men, I think that this NGO, All Women's Action Society, they did this White Ribbon campaign, which is actually started in overseas. I think Africa, in South Africa, if I'm not mistaken, where it actually started by men who begin to question violence against women. So it's a movement that started by men. In Malaysia, we took that on, and the Awam actually did a few campaigns on White Ribbon involving men, doing education. The men actually educating men, and they actually reach out to even the bikers, to corporate and various categories of people. Yeah, that is something that actually will help to change perception, because once you see, oh, there is that group of bikers who are so macho and all that, but they actually are against violence against women. So that actually will change perception. It will make young people think, what they are doing. So, but unfortunately, that campaign um, has kind of died off. So we need to ignite it, but men has to take that leadership. The other one is what the government has done for very long time. The women's movement has been trying to get sex education. Yeah, it's not bring respect and equality, a better relationship between men and women. So that has been kind of incorporated into some parts of the education system, but it's not vigorous enough for me. I think that we need to do much more. We have to really educate our young people. The whole, because respect is not just about gender. Respect is also about other races, other diversities, and all that. So that kind of education is not so vigorous in our education system.
Very insightful the answer from you, YB. So I move to my next question on you for you. Uh, we back to our main topic tonight, women's roles in policy making. So my question is, why do you think, YB, women's political participation is really important for our country, especially in our country?
Especially for all countries. I think for all countries, it's very important, because if we are making half the population, I think that women should be part of the decision making, because if we don't make decision, I just give you an example. In 2005, I think, I can't remember when the tsunami actually happened. But when the tsunami happened up in Kedah, a lot of houses and businesses were destroyed. Yeah, I mean hotels were also affected. So I went up to Kuala Kedah to actually see what I can do, because it was tsunami, and a lot of people were making a lot of donations and trying to do the best that they can. Uh, but when it comes down to compensation, because decision making is very concentrated among the males in little kampongs, yeah, the males are the ones who make the decision. So they will talk about their fishing boats, their fishing nets, whatever that they have lost, yeah, what the men lost as their livelihood, which is fair enough. But they also forgot, unfortunately, they forgot about the women who supplement their income by selling nasi lemak, roti canai. They lost all that equipment, their kuali and everything else, their flour and that were all washed out by the tsunami. They were totally not compensated, including their gold, because quite a lot of women keep gold as a saving. They lost that, but it was not brought up as part of the compensation by the government. So the livelihood of the men, they got compensated, but the livelihood of the women got neglected. So it's very important that once you understand that different discrimination and different people uh, are affected by a calamity or crisis or even special situation, then we will actually level the playing field and be able to compensate, include everyone. I mean, the UN thing is no one should be left behind. This is where nobody should be left behind in a crisis, even in a MCO, yeah, where you have women who are cleaners, who are, selling their wares by the streets and all that. But when MCO came about, they can't really do that anymore because they have to take care of their children. They have to stay back and take care of their children. And their work, they cannot continue because these kind of work are not digital work. Yeah, you can't actually go on the digital and then you start cleaning. You can't do that. You can't do a lot. So their work tend to be lost and not taken into consideration. So it's things like these nuances, yeah, that we need to understand that different people are impacted differently in any kind of situation. Once we understand the nuances, then our policies will be targeted towards solving those nuances and providing what I say, that the kind of help that is needed right down to where it's to the people who really need it. Otherwise, then we are like doing welfare work for the sake of welfare, but actually not really changing the livelihood of people.
Yes, exactly, maybe I agree with you. And it clearly shows the need to expand our narrative, not just for the main breadwinner or typically men, but also the women when it comes to certain nuances in problem solving. And along those lines, you mentioned earlier about the gatekeeping that aspiring politicians face. But what about women that are already in the scene? Is it fair to assume that women are shut out of decision making? And how do you overcome this issue if you face it, particularly in PJ?
I think that the decision making process, particularly when you come to election when general election happens, we have to see who makes the decision. You may be a women MP, but you may not be part of the decision making. Yeah, um, because some parties, if you look at it, they are all men. There's one party that's all men. All their MPs are men. So then you have to raise the questions why. Yeah, who makes those decisions? Then there are many years, yeah, the male MPs have been occupying seats, and there are some male MPs who have been there for not one term, not two terms, but 5 terms. Um, times five, you can guess how many years they have been in that seat. Um, so then where is the opportunity for women to come in? So therefore, when you actually try to increase women's political participation, you will have to face these gatekeepers, and the party itself has to reform itself to say that we will based it on an equality. We will base it on wanting to include women. So which means that those who hold the position for a long time will probably have to make way for young people to come in. I'm not even talking about just women, but young people to come in. So it's whether these gatekeepers will want to do that is something that has to be challenged.
Sure, I do agree with you that you have mentioned that most most of them MPs are come from men, and we do need the participation of women and especially youth women to involve in political. So, from your opinion, Wabi, I would like to ask that how do we can increase women participation, especially our youth women, uh, or involved in the political movement to start involved in political movement. What's your opinion, Wabi?
Of course, I would argue for quota, but quota means you have to do some law changes. Yeah, so we are not sitting in parliament, unfortunately, to even raise that issue. But you see, Penang last year did, the state government did a very bold thing. They brought in this uh, uh, women additional seats. Yeah, these women additional seats actually means that after the election, whether state election or general election, state election rather, after the state election, you can actually uh, appoint women or marginalized groups to be the state assembly representatives, which is what Sabah has. Sabah, after state election, can actually appoint six state assembly persons. So in Penang, they did it. You can only be able to appoint based on your vote. Yeah, how many votes you have, you take that percentage of the votes, and then you either get one or two women representative, or asli representative, or some marginalized group representative. It doesn't mean that it has to be women. The criteria has to be set by the state government. So this women additional seats um, means that it provides women and marginalized groups, even independents or small parties, the opportunity to experience what it is like to be a state assembly. You are somebody who has no constituency, no kawasan to take care of. You are there mainly to push for better policy at the state level. You are there to also assist in some of the work of the state assembly, but you don't have a kawasan attached to you, particularly like um, not like some of the aduns, yeah, where you just have to jaga your kawasan. So this is something that is not only just a Penang. I think I think Terengganu also did it. They appointed one woman because the whole state assembly there was no woman, so they appointed one woman using this additional after the election. They added one woman into their state assembly level, so it's possible. If you want to this must be a temporary measure. It cannot be forever. So this additional seats means that you only serve one term. The next term you have to stand for election, so you can't assume that you are always there. It is just a term for you to be exposed to how to make a decision making, how to liaise with government officials, agencies, and so forth, and how to also deal with kawasan issues and people. So this is a shortcut way, but it's an effective way of being inclusive. The other way, which a lot of countries do, is quota. Another way, which is a long term, is really changing the whole electoral system. Yeah, ours is first past the post. I think that mixed proportional representation, a close one, will actually be able to include more women as as possible candidates. But of course, in Malaysia, an additional thing is really bring back local council elections, which I have been talking for a long time. I think local council elections provide youth, women, and marginalized groups opportunity to get a feel of dealing with local issues, whether it's longkang right up to Sampah or very key issues like land development, the roads and things like that. I think that this is a first level expose to what it means by ground politics. So there are many methods that can be taken up. Most important is really whether there's a political will to do that.
Very insightful. Thank you for the answer, YB. So, to our audience watching, don't forget to drop your question for YB regarding our topic discussed today. And don't forget to like and share our live as well to win some great prizes. Okay, YB, I come back to you for the question where your involvement in politicals in your first year in political involvement. So, are there any issues around women's political leadership that concern to you?
Women leadership in my kawasan or
Yep.
generally?
Generally.
Really, of course, I would love to see more women in parliament. Definitely, 33 of us is just not enough. I would like to see more policies being discussed and less sexist remarks. So I think last week, all 33 of us, women members of parliament, came up with a statement, International Women's Day statement, to actually ask for gender sensitive parliament because, to be honest, we are sick and tired of all the sexist jokes being targeted at women. You just have to stand out, and then some wise crack will be made against women because they don't agree with what you say, but they don't have any answer to argue it out. The only thing that they throw at you is sexist remarks. So I would definitely like to see the standing order of the parliament changing to say that, not just no sexist remarks, but to actually even have some kind of gender sensitizing program for MPs so that they understand why it is important to also respect women members of parliament because we are all elected, and I don't think that women deserve to be put down in that manner. In my kawasan, I think that the help that I get really comes from the women. A lot of women from the grassroots actually come forward to help me run my program, so which is quite encouraging. But a lot of women are also single mothers. In Petaling Jaya, we do have urban poor, so it's really at the same time, I would like to see more women leadership, but they are struggling. The women who are poor are really struggling to make ends meet. I have families who can't feed their children whole week. They can only probably give them food for 2 to 3 days. And if you follow the news, somebody actually had to resort to stealing because she didn't have money to buy food for the children. So that is the challenge for women, where they have to make ends meet and still take care of the children and still have to work, find find ways and means to there are of different levels. The women are trying to struggle through life. But in the process of it, when I run the program, there are definitely women leaders. But what is important is that how do we actually give support to some of us, to these women leaders, so that they are able to also, so that we are able to lessen their burdens as well as encourage them to take up leadership. That's the biggest challenge that we have now.
All right, that's very insightful, YB. And before we go proceed into our Q&A session, we'd like to know what is your final thoughts or ideas or actually practical advice that you can give to young women who wants to take their first step into policymaking.
I've always said this, you have to do it in order to find yourself, whether you want to be in politics or not. Don't hesitate, just do it. Because only when you are in it will you know the challenges and how to resolve them. If you and most of the time, women can make it. I believe women can make it, but it's taking the bold step of entering into politics. And the same as for young men, yeah, don't hesitate. Just take take the bull by the horn, so to speak, and try it out. You may like it very much.
All right, thank you, YB. So now we have reached to the Q&A session, and thank you to everyone who managed to send in their question. However, we are still accepting more if you have any questions to our YB. But for now, we'll go into our first question from Mr. Taki from YouTube. And his question is, YB, for young female leaders in Malaysia, what advice would you give for those who aspire to take a role? And maybe what steps would they should take at a young age?
I think that uh, for the young women and even young men, it will be nice to actually uh, get yourself interned with either a state assembly or parliamentarians or um, even ahli majlis councillors. Yeah, that would be a good training ground. Then you will know whether you like to be part of it or not. That's one thing. The other thing is that if you don't have that kind of opportunity, like I say, just stand for election. I mean, just stand for election and see whether that is something that you want to do or not.
And other thing is that while you're talking about elections, right? I was wondering how are you whether there are any NGOs that would you give advice to make them engage with schools in terms of uh, taking students into the ground, like a young internship program maybe? How would you suggest for them to actually take part in practical engagement or cross collaboration between the government and schools?
Actually, in 2018, YB's Said Sadiq actually started this program, which is actually building young leadership. So in my kawasan, what I did was that we had we had an engagement of about 100 students, um, from 3 to form 5. Um, it's actually a leadership program, and at the end of it, depending on their interest and all that, we will select about 20 to 25 of them to actually join YB Said Sadiq's bigger program. So they have a retreat, yeah, in December. We have done it for 2 years. They have a retreat in December where all of them comes together and go through some kind of training. So that is part of building confidence in young people, building options to tell them that, if you study, there are these options. open to you, because like in particularly in Taman Medan, some of the children doesn't see any future. If they were to do well or don't do well, they don't see any future. So that course actually brings back, gives them the opportunity to know that, you know, there are many other things, that even if worst come to worst, you don't have a degree, there are certain things you can do. If you have a degree, there are also other things that are available. So these are the things that we can actually have to build that kind of leadership and confidence.
Right, true. I do realize that the initiative that have made by YB Sadiq, I think that's a good initiative that we made by him. So, which is he tried to develop youth participation in politics, in movement, involvement, and so and try to give them opportunity to get an exposure, what kind of thing that happens in politics, what kind of thing that they can do in politics and movement, and so on. So, my next question to you, YB, uh, how do you see that this kind of initiative can be sustained, and what kind of steps that we need to take to make sure that we can uphold this kind of initiative till the end?
Um, Actually, it can be sustained. Last time when before birthday, I was in this NGO called Empower. I actually run political training for women, only women. And I train across party. So people at that time, people from past UMNO, MIC, Gerakan, MCA, and also the opposition are part of the participants, and it's possible to sustain it if the political parties take on that kind of training. Yeah, that they actually not just give training. In fact, I don't know whether they even do training, but to actually have a much more systematic training where you deal with not just politics, but you also give confidence to the young people, whether male or female, give them the confidence and give them the resources. Most important is how do you pay for the deposit, yeah. Give them the resources so that they will actually have that, uh, they feel not just the confidence but the support, and be able to actually take the bold step whether they want to stand or not. I think that it can be sustained by political parties. NGOs will find it a bit difficult because we have to keep on raising money in order to get the participants. But if you want to stand as a candidate, of course, you know, the political parties can give you that training. So it can be sustained via the political parties. At one point, I think Election Commission was actually talking about that too, training young people to participate in the electoral system. So the government can also do that, you know, can have programs to build political leaders, like what Sadiq has done. But I don't think now there are that kind of programs now at the government level.
Um, that's a very unfortunate thing, but I think the closest we have anything that relates to policy making or politics with the youth or the general public would be the Sekolah Politik, which is currently happening right now, organized by the Ministry of Youth and Sports. And along the similar lines of Sekolah Politik, right, YB? What do you think, or do you think is wise for the government or the Ministry of Education to bring in the topics of politics, or rather at least our constitution, into the syllabus?
I think it should be, you mean the school syllabus?
Yes.
Yeah, I think yes, it should be, because if you look at our school textbook, hardly mention the women heroes, heroines that we have in Malaysia, which is quite a pity because we have so many. Um, so that kind of history seems to be lost to a large extent. Even my time, I hardly know that there were women heroines at all. I only know male heroes. So so there has to be some kind of paradigm shift in our education curriculum. Seriously, shift to recognizing that it's not just about men or women participating in politics, but shift towards the whole concept of what we mean by respect, what we mean by diversity, and know that each person is different, and you need to have different solutions for each group or individuals. That kind of openness towards each other, that is the paradigm shift that I would like to see in the education system. Then we will be more inclusive. Then we won't feel so threatened by this person or this race, or by women coming into politics, because it is a threat to some of the men. Yeah, and with more women means I have to give up my seat. So that kind of threat can be lessened by the way we actually do a paradigm shift over how we look at each other.
Great answer from you, YB. So I will move forward to the second question from our audience, YB. So next question is from Miss Divya from Facebook. The question is, good day, YB. What would be your advice to women who hesitate to voice up due to insecurities? And the next is, how did you deal with your insecurities at the very beginning of your career?
I think all of us, not just women who have insecurities and fears and hesitation. Um, how do I do it? I actually do talk to people. I think that is the best way, because sometimes the problem is so big that you can't solve it by yourself. Um, I give an example of birthday. Uh, I mean, it was very scary because we had to confront quite a lot of forces, right? The police lah, the government lah, the media lah. So what kept us going was that we had people around us that we can talk to. So when one or two of us say that, hey, I cannot go on like this kind of thing. I want to take a break and things like that. We talk about it, and we give each other the strength to move forward. I think that is most important. If you can't do it today, you don't have to do it today. Whatever action that you need to do, you don't have to do it, you must do it. Take a step back and see whether you need to actually take that bold step. Not everybody can take bold steps. Yeah. If for example, reporting a sexual harassment action, it is a very bold step to actually report about it. If you can't, then don't do it at that time, but maybe can talk to other people, look for other alternatives. Most important is really not to get yourself so disillusioned that you lose yourself. I think most important is to seek help lah.
Yeah, that's very true. That we kind of forget that men also have feelings sometimes, even though they try to appear rather tough in the outside. All right. So this would be our final question for tonight, and we're ending it with a bang, or rather a provocative question from our audience to YB Maria. Okay, so the question is from Nurul Kabza Zulkifli from Facebook, and her question is, in your opinion, among young women nowadays, are they concerned in policy making or politics, or do you think they don't care at all, or they think it's a male's job, a male's area? And what do you think about it?
I think it's a little bit of both. Some people still don't care very much about politics, but it's not just young women, yeah, young men as well. Where of course now more people are disillusioned with politicians. I have to admit that. Um, but I think that let us not look at politics as just the political parties. But in our daily lives, we are making a political decision too, like whether we take up this job or we don't take up the job, whether we want to work or we don't want to work, we want to study or don't want to study. Those are political decisions that we are making. So from small baby steps like that, although they are big decisions, but to being involved in politics, um, look at it this way: we are all staying in Malaysia, and if we see it at Malaysia as our home, of course we want to make it better. Our homes, we always want to decorate it or renovate, or buy things to menghiaskan, to make it look nicer. So the same thing as this country, we want to make it better. So whether you like it or not, you are staying in Malaysia. You can don't care about it, let your home run down and become a slum, or you can actually take a step and care about it and make it better. So the choice is really up to each individual whether you really care enough for this country or not to make it better. And I think that everyone do care, yeah, but it's just that perhaps they don't know how to actually show it and what action to take. But what is most important is like this forum talk about it, so that we can do it not by ourselves, but we can do it collectively. Most important is that to decorate or to make a country better, we have to do it together. It's just like this COVID, yeah. We can don't care and then don't wear masks and all that, and then get the virus. Or we can actually take care of ourselves, wear the mask, and make sure that everybody around us wear the mask, so that we actually control the virus and flatten the curve. So in this COVID-19, I think at the initial stage, yeah, the first stage, every Malaysian actually were actually very cooperative. They actually wear the mask, social distance, wash, sanitize. So we did the whole works. So the same thing as in politics, if we want to actually make politics is about making this country better. So if we want to make this country better, we have to do it together. The same as 2018. If nobody cares, we won't be able to change the government. But people care, so we have managed to change the government. So these are things that we can take collectively. We can take an action collectively, and we must never forget our history. That together we can actually change a lot of things.
True, Webby. I do agree with your answer. Where we need to take care of our own country for our own betterment for our Malaysia, and for that, everyone need to play their own role to make our country better, especially in our future. Right. So I think, may I ask the last question from the audience for you, Webby? The
Okay.
last question, I think, from the audience. So the questions come from Ms. Zulaika Zulkifli from YouTube platform. The question is, YB, how do you handle skepticism and stereotypes about female leaders from the voters and other members of the parliament?
The stereotypes will always be there, so usually I ignore them. I really because you either engage with them, or you don't, or you just ignore them. If you engage with them, make sure that you don't get into a tense situation. But I think stereotypes and all that backs a longer term solution, because it is all about mindset. So if we have a much more gender sensitive curriculum in our schools right from the start, we may be able to reduce this kind of stereotypes. I see textbooks still depicting women as cleaning, sweeping the floor, cooking in the kitchen, taking care of children. That kind of role has to change. Not to say that women should not do those things, but men should also start taking responsibility. So once we change that image, we will have a very different world, um, from what we have now. Lah. So it is a matter of whether we want to change that perception or not. And I think that we should. We should really change that. I don't want to wait for another 30 years to be sitting here or hearing again that why is there less women in parliament. I want to actually hope that in my lifetime I can actually see more women in parliament.
Yeah, that's very true. And you mentioned about how women are handling stereotypes, and it's better for us just to um exclude it off. But I wonder if I can ask you a rather personal question, YB. What is the worst stereotype or sexist remark that you've ever received throughout your career?
Um, oh, a lot. But I think one was birthday. I think that was when me and Ambika first took over because we are two women, yeah. Um, Before us was that the birthday rally in 2007, where it was mainly organized by the political parties, and most of them were male. So when we came in and took over as an NGO, so we were preparing our first rally under Birthday 2.0. Somebody stood up and said that, I bet you that you will fail. Yeah, right in our face, and we were like stunned and shocked, and we were really panicking because we really uh, I have to admit, we really didn't know how to organize a rally at that time, because that was our first rally involving so many people. Most of the time, it's only like maybe 20 women or 30 people joining us, but not like in thousands. But what actually made us move forward is that we had each other. We had support also from the some of the NGOs. So it actually helped me to overcome that. So we say that yes, we take note of this person's remark, but we will show him that we can actually do it, and somehow or other it just fall into place.
That's very, very inspiring to hear. Yeah, I'm sure it must be very shocking for you to experience that firsthand. And unfortunately, our coffee session tonight has come to an end. And although we would like to know more, all great things must finish somewhat at some point in time, right? And therefore, we would like to thank our guest speaker, YB Maria Chin, for all the sharing and knowledge given.
Thank you very much.
And major appreciation also goes to our sponsors for making this happen, which is Pertubuhan Kepimpinan Anak Muda Negeri Sembilan, PKAMNS.
Yes, true, Alice. So, on behalf of the committee, we hope this event will be an enjoyable and memorable moment for all of you that watching, and the woman will continue to leave an imprint in your life, so that you get to enjoy the day as much as we have enjoyed organizing this event for you. And now, I would like to leave you with the quote by Oprah Winfrey, a television host and philanthropist, who once said, "Think like a queen. A queen is not afraid to fail. Failure is just a stepping stone to greatness." With that, thank you and Assalamualaikum.